The space station called Academy floated in the darkness between three different solar systems. It was a massive structure, built from metals that shone like silver under the distant starlight. Every year, young people from 37 different alien species came here to study. They learned about laws that govern the galaxy. They learned about trade and diplomacy. And they learned about war. Park sat in the back row of Lecture Hall 7. She was 23 years old, born on Earth in a small city near the Korean coast. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the plain gray uniform that all students received on their first day. Nothing about her appearance was remarkable. Nothing about her drew attention. This was exactly how she wanted it. She was one of only 4 humans at the Academy this year. Humanity had joined Galactic Society just 200 years ago, which made them the species in the Unified Council. Most aliens looked at humans the way adults look at children who have wandered into an important meeting. They were tolerated sometimes, but never respected. The lecture hall was shaped like a half circle, with seats rising up toward the back wall. Students of all shapes and sizes filled the room. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no visible features at all, just floating clouds of light that somehow thought and spoke and learned. Had spent her first month at the academy simply learning to recognize the different species. Professor stood at the front of the room. He was which meant he looked something like a giant insect standing on 2 legs. His body was covered in hard green plates, and his head featured 2 large compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He was ancient by standards, nearly 400 years old, and he had studied warfare across 100 different worlds. Today's lecture was about combat theory. Specifically, it was about comparing how different species approached violence. Clicked his mandibles together, a sound that the translation devices in everyone's ears converted to a thoughtful hum. A holographic display appeared in the air beside him, showing images of different alien warriors throughout history. The said, gesturing to an image of a tall, silver-skinned creature with 4 arms, developed their combat techniques over 15,000 years. Their physical advantages are obvious. 4 limbs for striking, dense muscle structure, natural armor plating along the spine and skull. The image shifted to show a warrior similar to himself. They rely on exoskeleton defense and numerical coordination. One is dangerous, 100 moving as one mind is unstoppable. More images followed. The who fought using telepathic attacks that could shut down an enemy's brain. The massive creatures who used their sheer size to crush opposition. The silken, who moved so fast that most species could not track them with their eyes. Then the display showed a human. It was a simple image, just a human male in military uniform standing at attention. Compared to the alien warriors before it, the human looked soft, weak, unimpressive. A laugh broke out somewhere in the middle of the lecture hall. Did not turn to look, she already knew who was laughing. His name was. He was nobility, the son of a famous military commander. His silver skin was always polished to a shine, and he wore jewelry made from metals found only on his home world. He had 4 arms like all, and he used them to gesture dramatically whenever he spoke. He was tall, muscular, and completely certain that he was the most important person in any room. He had spent the entire semester making life difficult for the human students. Professor said, his voice carrying easily through the hall, "Why do we waste time studying human combat? They are barely worth mentioning." His compound eyes shifted toward the student. "All species in the Unified Council deserve examination, young lord." "Do they?" Stood up, which was against lecture hall rules, but no one tried to stop him. His family was too powerful. Humans have only been traveling through space for 200 years. Their bodies are soft. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no telepathy, no exoskeleton. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears like paper. He walked down toward the front of the room, as if he were the professor now. They live for barely 100 years. They can only use two limbs for combat. They cannot see in darkness. They cannot breathe underwater. They cannot survive in vacuum for more than a few seconds. He spread all four arms wide. What exactly are we supposed to learn from them? Several students nodded in agreement. A few laughed quietly. Continued writing notes. Her face showed nothing. Noticed her stillness. He pointed one silver finger in her direction. Look at this one. The quiet human girl who sits in the back and pretends to be invisible. She does not even defend her own species. Are humans also cowards? Now everyone was looking at. She felt their eyes on her, dozens of alien gazes waiting to see what she would do. She looked up from her notes. Her expression remained calm. I am here to learn, she said simply, not to argue. Because you cannot argue, replied. There is nothing to say. Humans are the weakest species in the galaxy. You are here because the Council felt sorry for you. You are a charity case. More laughter. Even Professor did not intervene. Perhaps he was curious how the human would respond. Perhaps he simply did not care. Held's gaze for a long moment. Something flickered behind her eyes, something cold and sharp, but it disappeared so quickly that no one noticed. Is there a question in there? She asked. Or are you just practicing a speech? The laughter stopped. Silver skin darkened slightly, which meant he was angry. You think you are clever, he said. You humans always think you are clever, but cleverness means nothing when you are weak. And humans are weak. Everyone knows this. He turned back to address the whole class. My people have a saying, a creature that cannot fight is food. That is what humans are to the galaxy. You are food that has learned to talk. He returned to his seat, accepting quiet congratulations from his friends. Professor resumed his lecture but was no longer listening. She was thinking. She had been at the academy for 4 months. In that time she had watched. She had learned. She had mapped the social structures, identified the powerful families, understood who held real influence and who only pretended to. She had done exactly what she was trained to do. Her official file said she was a cultural representative, a diplomat in training, a harmless student here to learn about galactic society so she could help humanity integrate better. Her official file was not entirely accurate. She looked at across the lecture hall. He was laughing with his friends, probably repeating his joke about humans being food. He had no idea what he had started. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. This was true. They were not the fastest or the toughest or the most naturally gifted for violence. But they had other qualities. They were patient. They were adaptable. They remembered insults for a very, very long time. And when they finally decided to act, they did not make threats or give warnings. They simply won. Returned to her notes. To anyone watching, she was just a quiet human student, unremarkable and easily forgotten. This was exactly how she wanted it. For now, corridors of academy were built for many different body types. The ceilings were high enough for the tallest species, and the floors were wide enough for creatures that moved on 6 or 8 legs. Lights of different colors lined the walls because some species could only see in certain parts of the spectrum. The air carried a faint hum from the machines that kept everyone alive in the emptiness of space. Walked alone after the lecture ended. She was thinking about dinner, about her homework, about the message she needed to send back to Earth. She was not thinking about. This was her mistake. She turned a corner and found him waiting for her. He was not alone. 3 other students stood behind him, forming a wall of silver skin and muscle. They were his friends or perhaps his followers. With nobility, it was often hard to tell the difference. Stopped walking. She measured the distance to the nearest exit. She counted the security cameras in the corridor. She noted the positions of each and calculated how they would likely move if things turned violent. All of this happened in less than a second. It was automatic, like breathing. Human said. He stepped closer, using his height to tower over her. "You did not answer my question in class." "I answered, you just did not like the answer." His forearms crossed over his chest. "You are arrogant for someone so weak. Does your species not teach respect?" "We teach many things, but not fighting, clearly." He smiled, showing rows of teeth that were sharper than they looked. "Your species is famous for being soft, peaceful, harmless. You talk about diplomacy and cooperation because you know you could never win a real fight." Said nothing. She simply watched him, the way a person might watch an insect crawling across a table. This seemed to bother more than any insult could have. "Tomorrow," he said, "Professor is allowing practical demonstrations. Volunteer sparring matches between different species. It is supposed to be educational." Understood immediately where this was going. "I am volunteering," continued, "and I am requesting you as my opponent." One of his friends made a sound that might have been a laugh. Another shifted uncomfortably, as if even he thought this was going too far. Looked at for a long moment. He was tall, strong, trained from childhood in combat arts. His species had been warriors for 15,000 years. Everything about him was designed for violence. And he wanted to fight a human girl half his size. "Why?" she asked. The question seemed to surprise him. "What do you mean, why?" "You have nothing to gain. If you win, people will say you defeated a weak opponent. If you lose, your reputation is destroyed." She tilted her head slightly. "So why?" Silver skin darkened again. "I will not lose." "That is not an answer." "Because I am tired of humans," he snapped. "You come to our academy, sit in our classrooms, act like you belong here. You do not belong here. Your species is nothing. I want to prove this. I want everyone to see what happens when a real warrior faces a human." Considered his words. She considered the anger in his voice, the certainty in his eyes. He truly believed what he was saying. He truly thought humans were worthless. Part of her wanted to simply walk away, accept the insult, let him think he had won. It would be easier, safer, more professional. But another part of her remembered something. She remembered her grandmother, who had survived a war when she was young. She remembered her father, who had served in the military for 30 years. She remembered every instructor who had trained her, every lesson she had learned, every skill she had developed in facilities that did not officially exist. She remembered what it meant to be human. "Fine," she said. "Blink to watch." "I accept tomorrow the sparring match." She met his eyes without fear. "I will be there." For a moment nobody moved. Friends exchanged glances, clearly uncertain. Even himself seemed surprised, as if he had expected her to refuse. "You understand what you are agreeing to?" he asked slowly. "This is not a game. Even with safety protocols, you could be seriously hurt." "I understand." "And you still accept?" "I already said yes." Stepped around him, continuing down the corridor. "Try not to be late tomorrow." She walked away without looking back. She could feel their eyes following her until she turned the corner and disappeared from view. That night, the academy buzzed with rumors. The quiet human girl had accepted a combat challenge from of house. The news spread through dining halls and dormitories, through study groups and social gatherings. By midnight, almost everyone had heard. Most students assumed would withdraw before morning. She was clearly not thinking straight. Perhaps the stress of the academy had affected her mind. Perhaps she simply did not understand how outmatched she was. Others made jokes. They placed bets on how quickly would win. 10 seconds, 20. Would the human girl even be able to stand after his first strike? A few students, however, said nothing. They were the ones who studied history. They were the ones who remembered stories from the first contact wars 2 centuries ago, when humanity had first encountered alien life. Those stories were not taught in classrooms. They were whispered in dark corners, passed down as warnings. They told of human soldiers who refused to surrender even when their ships were destroyed. They told of battles that should have been easy victories turning into nightmares. They told of a species that smiled politely and spoke of peace while planning attacks that no one saw coming. But those were just stories, old tales from a different time. Surely modern humans were different. Surely they had evolved past their violent history. Surely. In her small dormitory room, sat on her bed and stared at the wall. Her roommate, a gentle silken named, watched her with concern. "You do not have to do this," said. Her voice was soft, almost musical. "No one would blame you for withdrawing. Is dangerous." "I know. He has trained since childhood. His species is built for combat. You are," she stopped, searching for polite words. "Human finished. I am human." "Yes, and humans are not. I mean, your species is wonderful in many ways, but we are weak," smiled faintly. "Everyone keeps telling me this." Delicate features twisted with worry. "I do not want you to be hurt. You are the first human I have ever known. You have been kind to me. I consider you a friend." Something softened in his expression. "Thank you. That means more than you know." "Then please withdraw from the match. Let have his victory. It does not matter what he thinks." Stood up and walked to her window. Outside, stars burned in the infinite darkness of space. Somewhere out there, far beyond what her eyes could see, was Earth, her home, her people. "It matters," she said quietly. "Not because of pride, not because of anger. It matters because people like shape how the galaxy sees us. If I run away, I confirm everything he believes. If I stand and fight, maybe I change some minds. Or you end up in the medical bay with broken bones." Turned back to her roommate. Her smile was strange now, containing something that could not identify. "Maybe," said, "we will see." She did not sleep that night. Instead, she sat in darkness and remembered her training. She remembered the instructors who had pushed her past exhaustion. She remembered the techniques she had practiced thousands of times until they became automatic. She remembered the words of her commanding officer on the day she left for the academy. "You are not just a student," he had told her. "You are a representative of everything humanity has become. Show them who we are, but only if you must, only if there is no other choice." Tomorrow, there would be no other choice. Wanted to see what a human could do. Intended to show him. The combat arena was the largest room in Academy. It was built in the shape of a perfect circle, with rows of seats rising up on all sides like a bowl. The floor was made of a special material that could absorb impacts, reducing injuries during training exercises. Bright lights shone down from above, leaving no shadows, no places to hide. Today, every seat was filled. Word had spread quickly, and students had canceled classes and meals to witness the spectacle. Species that normally ignored each other sat side by side, united by curiosity. The air buzzed with conversation in dozens of different languages, all translated by the devices that everyone wore. In the front row sat the most important observers. Professor was there, his compound eyes reflecting the arena lights. Several other instructors had come as well, including Master, who taught advanced combat techniques. Even the academy director, an ancient being of pure energy named the Resonance, had sent a fragment of itself to watch. This was supposed to be a simple sparring match. It had become something much larger. Entered first. He walked through the main gate with his arms spread wide, accepting the cheers from his supporters. He wore traditional fighting wraps, bands of dark cloth wound around his wrists and ankles. His silver skin had been painted with symbols in bright red, marks of his family lineage and military honors. He looked magnificent. He looked unstoppable. His friends in the crowd chanted his name. Other students stomped their feet in the traditional rhythm of their war drums. The sound echoed through the arena like thunder. Then entered. She came through a side door, small and quiet. She wore the simple exercise clothes provided by the academy, plain gray fabric that made her look like any other student. No paint, no symbols, no ceremony at all. The chanting faded. The stomping stopped. People stared at the tiny human girl walking toward the center of the arena, and many of them felt something strange. It took a moment to identify the feeling. It was discomfort. There was something wrong about this picture. A massive warrior covered in battle honors facing a young human woman in gym clothes. It did not feel like a fair fight. It felt like something else. Something that made people want to look away. But no one looked away. Professor stepped forward to address the crowd. His voice carried easily through the arena, amplified by hidden speakers. This is a voluntary demonstration of comparative combat techniques. Both participants have agreed to the terms. The match will follow standard academy rules. No lethal force. The match ends when one participant submits or is unable to continue. Medical staff are standing by. He turned to look at both fighters. Do you both understand and accept these conditions? I accept, said loudly. His voice was full of confidence. I accept, said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Paused. Something about the human's demeanor troubled him, though he could not say exactly what. She showed no fear, no nervousness, no signs of the natural anxiety that any creature should feel before facing a superior opponent. It was unnatural. Very well, he said finally. Take your positions. Move to one side of the arena. He dropped into a combat stance, his forearms raised and ready, his muscles tensed beneath his silver skin. He was a predator preparing to strike. Walk to the other side. She stood straight, her arms at her sides. She did not take any visible fighting stance. She simply stood there, watching with dark, patient eyes. What is she doing? Someone whispered in the crowd. Maybe she is frozen with fear, another voice suggested. Maybe she has accepted her defeat already. The whispers spread through the arena. People shifted in their seats. The tension was building, but it was a strange kind of tension. It was not the excitement before a fight. It was the discomfort before something goes wrong. Raised one of his limbs. Match begins in 3, 2, 1. He dropped his limb. Begin. Exploded forward. He crossed the distance between them in 2 massive steps, his forearms already swinging in a pattern designed to overwhelm any defense. It was a classic opening attack, used for thousands of years to destroy enemies before they could react. Raised one hand. The gesture was simple, just a palm lifted toward her charging opponent. It was not a block. It was not a strike. It was just a hand raised in the air. And the room fell silent. It happened instantly. One moment there was noise, movement, energy. The next moment there was nothing. Every voice stopped, every breath caught, every eye locked onto that small human hand. Faltered. He was still moving, still attacking, but something had changed. His perfect rhythm broke. His confident stride stumbled. For the first time in his life, the warrior felt something he did not recognize. Fear. He did not understand why. Nothing had happened. The human had not moved, had not attacked, had not done anything except raise her hand. But somehow in that simple gesture, he saw something terrible. He saw certainty. Not hope, not determination, not the desperate courage of a weaker creature facing a stronger one. This was something else entirely. This was the calm, absolute certainty of someone who already knew how the fight would end. In the stands, a young named gasped. She was a telepath, trained from birth to read surface thoughts and emotions. She had been watching the match casually, expecting a quick and boring victory for the... Then she felt mind. It was like looking into a frozen lake. The surface was smooth and calm, reflecting nothing. But beneath that surface, in the darkness below, something moved. Something vast. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. "She is not afraid," whispered, her voice trembled. "She is not afraid at all." Her neighbor, a student twice her size, looked down at her. "What do you mean?" "The human, I can feel her thoughts. She is not scared, she is not nervous, she is not even excited." Eyes were wide with shock. "She is bored. She is bored because she already knows exactly what is going to happen." The turn back to the arena, suddenly uncertain. Below completed his attack. His fists cut through the air where had been standing. But she was not there anymore. She had moved, not backward like a prey animal fleeing from danger, not sideways like a fighter seeking better position. She had moved forward into the space between his arms, into the place where she should have been crushed. She stood directly in front of him. Her raised hand touched his chest, just below where his heart's beat. The touch was light, almost gentle. His whole body locked. He could not move. He could not breathe. He could not understand what had happened. One moment he was attacking, the next moment he was frozen in place with a human's palm resting against his chest. "Pressure point," said quietly. Her voice was calm, almost kind. "Your species has 17 of them. I have studied all of them." She stepped back. The paralysis released and staggered, gasping for air. The arena remained silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They were all watching, all waiting, all trying to understand what they were seeing. Looked at the human girl standing before him. She was half his size. She had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. And she had just stopped his attack with one finger. "What are you?" he asked. Smiled. It was not a cruel smile, not a mocking smile. It was the smile of a teacher watching a student begin to understand a difficult lesson. "I am human," she said. "We have a lot more to show you." The match was not over. It had barely begun. But somewhere in the back of his mind, House began to suspect that everything he believed about humans was wrong. Attacked again. He was angry now, and warriors became more dangerous when they were angry. His four arms moved in a blur of silver, striking from every direction at once. Any normal opponent would have been overwhelmed instantly. Any normal opponent would have been broken. Was not normal. She moved between his strikes like water flowing around stones. She did not block. She did not retreat. She simply was not there when his fists arrived. Her body bent and twisted in ways that seemed impossible, sliding through gaps that should not have existed. To the watching crowd, it looked like magic. It looked like she could see the future, dodging attacks before they were even thrown. But it was not magic. It was something far more frightening. It was 10,000 years of human combat evolution, compressed into one small body. Through a devastating combination, all four arms striking in sequence. Any one of those blows could have shattered bone. Together, they should have been unstoppable. Stepped inside his reach. Her elbow touched his ribs, a light tap that looked almost accidental. His left side went numb. He stumbled, his balance destroyed. "Nerve cluster," said, "between the third and fourth rib on your species, very sensitive." He roared and swung again. She ducked under his arm and her fingers brushed the back of his knee. His leg collapsed. He fell to one knee, struggling to understand what was happening to his body. "Tendon intersection," she explained. "Temporary paralysis. It will pass in a few minutes." The crowd was completely silent. They had come to watch a powerful warrior defeat a weak human. They were watching something else entirely. They were watching a noble being taken apart, piece by piece, by an opponent he should have crushed in seconds. Forced himself back to his feet. His leg was working again, though it trembled slightly. His side still ached where she had touched him. He had never felt so helpless in his life. "How?" he demanded. "How are you doing this?" Tilted her head, considering the question. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Then I will tell you, but first you need to understand something about my species." She began to circle him, moving with a grace that seemed wrong for a human. She was not threatening him. She was not pressing her advantage. She was teaching. "Humans are not strong," she said. "You were right about that. We cannot match muscle. We cannot compete with armor. We have no telepathy, no venom, no natural weapons. Our bodies are soft and breakable." She continued circling, turned to keep her in sight, his 4 arms raised defensively. "But we had to survive anyway. On our home world, everything tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even other humans." Her voice was calm, almost sad. "We could not be stronger than our enemies, so we learned to be smarter." She stopped moving. "We studied everything. We took apart every creature that threatened us. We learned how muscles worked, how bones connected, how nerves carried signals. We found the weak points in every enemy we faced, and then we built fighting systems designed to exploit those weaknesses." She raised her hand again, the same simple gesture from before. "Your species is strong, but strength means nothing if your opponent knows exactly where to touch you to make that strength disappear." Stared at her. His mind was struggling to process what he was hearing. "You studied us." "We study everyone." His expression did not change. "Every species in the galaxy has weaknesses. We have found most of them. We have developed techniques to exploit all of them. It is what we do. It is what we have always done." She lowered her hand. "Humans survive. That is our gift. That is our curse. We look at every creature in the universe and we think, how would I kill this? How would I survive against this? We cannot help it. It is built into us." In the stands, the silence had become something heavier. Students who had laughed at humans yesterday were not laughing now. They were thinking about what the human girl had just said. They were thinking about being studied. Gathered himself for one final attack. He was a warrior. He would not surrender to words. He charged. This time did not dance away. She stepped forward to meet him, moving inside his guard before his arms could close around her. Her palm pressed against his forehead. He felt the pressure, felt something shift in his skull, and then the world went dark. He woke up on the arena floor. Medical staff were kneeling beside him, scanning his body with their instruments. His head ached, but he was not seriously injured. Stood a few feet away, watching him with those calm, patient eyes. "What did you do?" he asked. His voice was weak. "Pressure point," she said again. "In your skull behind the eyes. It disrupts blood flow to the brain. You were unconscious for about 30 seconds." She had knocked him out by touching his forehead. The crowd finally began to make noise again. But it was not cheering. It was whispers, murmurs, the sounds of hundreds of beings trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Looked up at them. She spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "You asked in class why humans are here. You wanted to know what makes us dangerous." She paused. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons or armor or special powers. What we have is 10,000 years of learning how to kill things that are bigger and stronger than we are." She began walking toward the edge of the arena. "Every species has weaknesses. Every body has pressure points, nerve clusters, structural flaws. We find them, we study them, we remember them forever." She stopped and turned back to face the silent crowd. "We came from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Everything on our planet was designed to end us. And we won. We beat all of it. We conquered our world, built cities and machines and weapons, and then we reached out to the stars." Her voice hardened. "The galaxy looks at us and sees a weak species, a young species, a species that smiles and speaks of peace and cooperation. And that is true. We do want peace. We are tired of violence. We have spent too many centuries killing each other, and we do not want to do that anymore." She looked directly at, who was sitting up now, supported by medical staff. "But do not mistake our desire for peace as weakness. Do not mistake our diplomacy for cowardice. We choose to be peaceful. We choose to be polite. We could choose differently at any time." She began walking again, heading for the exit. Humans are apex predators, she said without turning around. We are the most dangerous thing our planet ever produced. We learned to be gentle because we had to, because if we were not gentle, we destroyed everything around us. She reached the exit and paused. The galaxy forgot what we are. I hope you do not make us remind you. Then she was gone, leaving behind a silent arena and a room full of beings who were seeing humanity in a very different light. Professor stood at the front of the arena for a long moment. His compound eyes reflected the empty space where the human had been standing. Finally, he spoke. Class dismissed. No one moved for several minutes. They were too busy thinking. They were too busy being afraid. Yet, the days after the match were strange ones at Academy. Returned to her normal routine. She attended classes, completed her assignments, ate her meals in the same corner of the dining hall she had always used. She did not boast about her victory. She did not seek attention. She simply continued being the quiet human student she had always appeared to be. But everything around her had changed. Students who had ignored her before now moved aside when she walked through corridors. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Eyes followed her wherever she went, filled with something that had not been there before. Respect, fear, curiosity, perhaps all three. Professor called her to his office 1 week after the match. His chambers were filled with artifacts from 100 different worlds, trophies from his long career studying warfare. He gestured for her to sit. I have been teaching for 200 years, he said. I thought I understood combat. I thought I understood species. I did not understand humans at all. Sat quietly, waiting for him to continue. I have been reviewing my curriculum. The section on human warfare was 3 lectures long. I am expanding it to 20. His compound eyes studied her. I was hoping you might assist me. In what way? I have academic knowledge, books, historical records, but you have practical experience. You understand things that I can only read about. He leaned forward. I want my students to truly understand your species, not the version we have been teaching, the real version. Considered this for a moment. That could be dangerous. Dangerous. Knowledge of human combat techniques could be used against us. If I teach your students our weaknesses along with our strengths, I would be betraying my people. Nodded slowly. A fair concern, but consider this. The galaxy already underestimates humanity. Is that not more dangerous in the long term? Misunderstandings lead to conflicts. Conflicts lead to wars. If the other species truly understood what humans are capable of, perhaps they would be less likely to provoke you. It was a reasonable argument. Filed it away for her report. I will think about it, she said. She left his office and walked toward the dormitory section. Halfway there, she found someone waiting for her. Stood in the middle of the corridor. His silver skin had lost some of its shine, and the confident posture she remembered was gone. He looked smaller somehow, though he was still nearly twice her height. Human, he said. She replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Other students hurried past them, giving the pair a wide space. I want to learn, said finally. Raised an eyebrow. Learn what? What you showed me in the arena, how you move, how you think, how you see weaknesses that no one else can see. He took a deep breath. In my culture, being defeated by a superior warrior creates a bond. The loser owes the winner respect and service. I was defeated. I owe you. I do not want your service. Then take my respect. He lowered his head, a gesture of submission that knew was extremely significant in culture. I was wrong about your species. I was foolish and arrogant and blind. You showed me the truth. The least I can do is learn from it. Studied him for a long moment. She saw something in his eyes that had not been there before, something that replaced the arrogance and cruelty. Humility. Very well, she said. Tomorrow morning, training room 7. Bring comfortable clothes. We start with basic principles. head rose. Something like hope flickered across his silver features. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. Human training is not easy. Many of our students quit in the first week." "I will not quit." Almost smiled. "We will see." She continued toward her dormitory, stood in the corridor for a long time, watching her go. That night, sat in her room and composed a message to Earth. The transmission would take 3 days to reach its destination, bouncing through a series of relay stations that connected the galaxy. She chose her words carefully. Integration proceeding well. Cultural impact of demonstration exceeds initial projections. Professor has requested assistance with curriculum development. Former antagonist has requested training. Both opportunities could advance mission objectives. She paused, thinking about what had happened, thinking about what it meant. Personal assessment. The galaxy is beginning to remember what humans are. This is both opportunity and risk. Our reputation for peace and diplomacy remains intact, but there is now an understanding that this peace is a choice, not a necessity. She paused again. Recommend continued observation. Recommend preparing contingency plans in case perception shifts from respect to fear. Humanity has worked hard to be seen as friends rather than threats. We must be careful not to become the monsters they were afraid of. She sent the message and turned off her terminal. Outside her window, stars burned in the eternal darkness. Somewhere out there, humanity was building, growing, reaching further into the galaxy every year. They sent diplomats and traders and scientists, spreading goodwill and cooperation wherever they went. But they also sent people who smiled and spoke politely and never raised their voices, people who sat in the back of classrooms and took careful notes, people who looked harmless until the moment they needed to be something else. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were. Now, slowly, they were beginning to remember. This was not necessarily a bad thing. Fear could lead to war, but it could also lead to respect. Understanding could lead to cooperation. Perhaps showing the galaxy what humanity was capable of would actually make peace more likely, not less. Or perhaps it would convince the other species that humans were too dangerous to leave alone. Only time would tell. In the meantime, Park would continue her mission. She would attend classes and complete assignments and train in the basics of human combat philosophy. She would be polite and friendly and helpful. She would be exactly what humanity needed her to be. A few weeks later, something unusual happened. A young silken student approached in the dining hall. She was delicate and beautiful, with skin that shimmered like silk in the light. Her name was, and she was roommate. "I have been thinking," said quietly, "about what you said in the arena, about how humans see weaknesses in everything." Looked up from her meal. "Yes." "I wondered," hesitated, "I wondered if you could teach me too." "Why?" "Because I am tired of being seen as fragile. My species is known for speed and grace, but we are also known for being delicate, breakable, weak." She met's eyes. "I want to learn how to be something else. I want to learn how to be dangerous." Considered this request. It was different from situation. He had been defeated and wanted to learn from his conqueror, simply wanted to become stronger. "Human training is designed for human bodies," said slowly. "It would need to be adapted for your species. The pressure points are different. The movement patterns would need to change. But it could be done." Perhaps, took a bite of her food, thinking, it would be an interesting experiment, and it might help strengthen relations between our species. His face lit up with hope. "Then you will teach me." "I will try, but I make no promises. You might not be suited for this kind of training." "I will work hard. I will do whatever you ask." Nodded. "Then we begin tomorrow, after my session with, bring comfortable clothes." She returned to her meal, but her mind was already working on the problem. Human combat techniques adapted for alien bodies. It was a challenge, certainly, but humans had always been good at adapting. That was, after all, how they had survived. Months passed. Small training sessions grew into something larger. Word spread of the human who taught combat techniques that worked against any species. Other students began asking for instruction. Some were motivated by fear, wanting to protect themselves. Others were motivated by curiosity, wanting to understand the strange human approach to violence. Accepted them all. She was not just training individuals anymore. She was building bridges. Every student she taught became someone who understood humanity a little better. Every technique she shared became a connection between species. This was the true mission, not demonstrating human power but sharing human wisdom, teaching the galaxy that strength was not about muscles or claws or natural weapons. Strength was about understanding. Strength was about adaptation. Strength was about never giving up, no matter how impossible the situation seemed. That was what it meant to be human. And now, slowly, the galaxy was learning too. In her final report to Earth wrote, "Mission successful. Recommend continued engagement. Humanity's place in the galaxy is more secure than ever, not because they fear us, but because they are starting to understand us." She signed her name and sent the message into the stars. Then she went back to class, just another quiet human student. Just another monster pretending to be harmless. Just another human, doing what humans had always done. Surviving